strategies on knowing your audience and how to order your relevant information. We're going to do that for you today. Number two, decide what to say. Choose how you'll open. This is very important because you really want to grab the audience's attention in the beginning before you start giving more details and more information. So, plan a well-organized body. This is where both the facts and information and details are going to be, and you want to structure it in a way that is informative as well as engaging. So, determine how you'll close, also very important. This is where you're going to summarize all the facts and all the main points to your audience at the end. Number three, prepare for Q&A. So, you want to actually control these difficult or hostile audience members. So, somebody like Mason, if they're in the room, you really actually have to be prepared for that if they're going to, pounce on you at any moment. So, respond effectively and listen carefully to questions. This could be just paraphrasing back to the audience what you have to say or what they said so you can answer it more effectively. And be prepared for difficult questions. Do your research, so you don't get stumped by a fourth grader or something. And then we have your tools. So explore possible content. You're going to want to start with a strategy and you want to get to know your audience. So before you start, before you do anything, you really just want to know who your audience is, and you're going to have to structure it a lot differently if you have a room full of, let's say, high schoolers versus a room full of high-class, wealthier people. You're going to structure it a lot differently. So this goes into research and preparing, and you want to connect with your audience. So let's say that I have a room full of NBA basketball players that I'm presenting to. And I want to do research on this, and I want to connect with them. And if I start going on and on about bowling and checkers and chess, they're not going to care what I'm saying. So if I can do research and I can, let's say, look up the last 10 NBA teams that won the championship over the last 10 years, and I can incorporate that into my presentation somehow, maybe I can connect with them better. Maybe I can get them to trust me a little better before I go into the details. So that goes into generating your own content. And you want to connect your strategies to the topic. So this is where you want to get into the actual content of your message, and you want to get into the details. And by this time, you don't have to research anymore. You're more comfortable with your audience. You can actually connect with them better. And this is going to go into focusing and ordering the information that you have. So once you get all your ideas down, once you get them all together, you're going to want to put them into some sort of outline or some sort of chart. And this is just going to help you guys better organize all your information. We've all seen this sort of box to another box thing, or the bubble to a bubble. We've all done that before. And, it's just going to help you kind of make the writing part actually easier for your presentation. And for this, you can use your own method. There's no set way of doing these things. You can kind of do whatever makes you comfortable. We all have our different methods. And so on that, we're going to go into Daniel, and he's going to tell you how to decide what to say.
So with presentation, it kind of gets broken down into three different parts. Deciding what to say is going to be the whole purpose of your presentation, and the first part of that is deciding how you're going to open. The first part of how you're going to open is setting the stage. What you're going to do there is try to connect with your audience and introduce the structure you're going to be using for your presentation. Grabbing their attention is going to be the second part. So that's going to be a very key part, because without the attention of the audience, there's no point in the presentation. You're not getting your point across. Attention grabbers such as asking the audience a question or telling them what's in it for them are going to be good common ways to grab their attention. Humor can also be used, but be careful with humor, because if it's inappropriate or if it doesn't relate, that's not a good thing. Also, if you happen to offend somebody, not intentionally, you're not going to have the interest of others as well. The last part is to always include a preview. Preview your structure of your presentation to give everybody a good idea of what's going to be said, how it's going to be said. That can also give them a good idea of how long you'll be talking, so they can gauge, I guess, how much interest they want to actually put into how long you'll be talking. The next part after your opening will be planning a well-organized plan. So when it comes to presentations, you've basically got two different types. You've got a tell presentation, which is an informative talk, and you've got a sell presentation, which is a persuasive talk. The different types of structures are listed here. You'll see topical structure is listed under both presentations, just because it's essentially a list of your key points and main ideas. If it's a tell presentation, and with sell presentation, it's basically going to be your reasons for a change. structure is going to talk about what has been happening in the past, what is currently happening now, and what will happen in the future for your organization or whatever you're talking about. Contrast-based structure, you're going to compare, contrast your different points you're talking about. Persuasion presentations, importance based is very like what it says. You're going to have your different points prioritized by importance, the first one being the most important and going from there. You'll have space-based structure and then problem/solution structure. Problem/solutions is where you're going to introduce a problem, but you're also going to follow up with a solution to show that you've already come up with a way to solve that problem. Last part is going to decide how you'll close. Okay, so to close an informative talk, your main idea is to kind of recap all your key points, and you're also going to repeat your objective that the presentation was working towards to help the audience get a good understanding of what everything you just talked about. A persuasive talk, when you close that, the whole point is to close the sale. Anybody who works in sales like I do, that's the main point, is closing the sale, because you don't make any money if you don't do anything. The last part is going to be using initial and final closing statements. This will be used when you have a presentation that's followed by a Q&A. The initial closing statement comes at the end of all your informative talk to wrap up everything, like I said, with closing and informative talk. And then the final closing statement after the Q&A is going to use all the answers from those questions to tie them back into everything you just talked about. Okay, so now I'll move it on to Mitch.
Alright, hey everybody, I'm going to be giving you some tips on how to prepare for a question and answer session. And I know we don't have a question and answer session after today's presentation, but in a lot of business settings we're going to have to be prepared for any questions the audience can throw at us. So the first tip is very broadly, just get ready for their questions. And the first step about that is deciding when you're going to take your questions. You can either take them all the way throughout the presentation, or you can take them after your presentation. And there can be benefits to each of those. If you're taking them throughout the presentation, it gives it more of an interactive feel. The classroom gets involved. If you take them after the presentation, then some people may not get distracted throughout the presentation, lose focus if people are asking questions and kind of taking it in a weird tangent that you didn't want your presentation to go on. And the second tip, for that, is to be prepared for the tough questions. A good way to do that is to get a friend to help you out while you're practicing, and just tell them, be ruthless, don't hold back, ask me the difficult questions so you can be prepared to think on your feet in front of people. And the next step there is to refine your listening skills. And a really good thing to do, pay attention and paraphrase the question back to the classroom or whoever you're presenting to. This can help people in the back row who may not have heard it to get what you're saying. Maybe whoever asked the question wasn't completely clear with it, so maybe some people in the crowd don't understand what they're asking. So that's a really good tip to use for your listening skills there. And next, you want to respond effectively. And the good thing about this is you can do it briefly. You can stay on your message so that people don't lose focus in what you're trying to say. And you don't want to give too much detail here. You want to balance your brevity with your detail. So, keep it short and sweet, but make sure you're getting the question completely answered. The next tip here is to listen for the challenging questions. And there's a lot of different types of challenging questions, so kind of understanding what the different types are can help you to address each of them. The first one here is unclear questions. If somebody just wasn't clear about what they're asking, the question was very broad, and you don't exactly know what they're saying, maybe the best thing to do is just to ask them, could you please explain that, or could you please, I don't completely understand what you're saying, and that may help a lot of people in the crowd understand what they're saying too. Next, you can have some limiting questions, and those may be questions that are worded in such a way that you feel inclined to answer in one way or the other. For example, somebody asked, do you think it's more important for doctors to spend more time with their patients or just run through as many patients as they can in a day? And in different scenarios, each of those can have benefits, but the way they word the question, you feel like a jerk if you answer in one way or the other. So a good way to do that is to ask again or reword the question in a way that doesn't come off so one-sided. And then then lastly, you have the don't know questions. What I mean by that is you simply have no idea what the answer to the question is. And that's no problem. We're not all geniuses, so we're going to have those questions. And the best thing for your credibility is not to make something up. So if somebody goes and checks it afterwards, they just think you're an idiot. So the best thing is just to say, you know, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to your question. Point them in the right direction of where they can find an answer. Or another really good tip there is you can open it up to a classroom discussion. Say, that's a really interesting question. What does everybody else in the classroom think? Chances are somebody's going to know something about the topic. And then the last two here, you want to control difficult or hostile audience members. And the first point here is be polite. You know, you're not going to want to come off adversarial to your audience. You're almost never going to come out looking like a good guy. And agree to disagree with audience members. Don't belittle their opinions or make them feel like their points aren't being heard. Find common ground between them and make sure you see that you agree on a lot of points too. Then lastly, we have deal with online comments. And what I mean here is in a lot of presentations, people will use something called a back channel. And that can be Twitter or a different chat room that people are using to discuss your presentation throughout, ask questions to each other. And you got to consider the pros and cons when people are using a back channel. It's a really innovative way for people to, you know, get information and share it between each other. And it can be, you know, interesting if you're up here at a question and answer session and scrolling through Twitter. People feel really involved if they're, you know, using this back channel. But the cons here is, you know, if you're up here on the tablet or something, looking for questions in your question and answer session, then sometimes people may get distracted. It kind of loses the flow as opposed to just picking people out in the audience. So that's everything for preparing a question and answer session. And now Jacob is going to summarize everything for everybody.
All right, so speaking of Q&A, does anyone have any questions? Anybody? Okay. So, number one, explore possible content. You want to know your audience before you do anything, and you want to do your research. Number two, you're going to decide what to say. Choose how you'll open, very important. You want to grab the audience's attention before you get into details. Find a well-organized body. This is where the bulk of the facts and the information is going to be. And determine how you'll close, also very important. This is just where you summarize all the main points, kind of like we're doing now. Number three, prepare for the Q&A. And again, identify and prepare for the hostile, in all caps, audience members. And you want to listen carefully to the questions and maybe just iterate back to them what they said. Make it easier for them to understand, you to understand each other. And you want to be prepared for the tough questions. And that is it.
Great.
And you need a quiz.
Will you read the quiz questions, please?
Yeah.